Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. If you have watched my channel at all, or for any meaningful period of time, you will most likely have heard me be extremely critical of USADA, and I think with good reason. The amount of scandals that they have had is unbelievable, and at times it leaves you wondering, oh, are they even trying to catch guys at all? I want to go over a couple of those just before for some context, and then we will talk about the most recent one with Conor McGregor, and we're going to speculate as to if they are actually trying to do their job now or if this is just smoke and mirrors. So before we get into it, please like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it, dude. I'll thank you in advance because I'm Canadian, eh? And we are polite. So please don't be the kind of person that doesn't do the thing they've already been asked for, all right? Let's get right into it. So I'm just going to name off a few of the most high profile scandals, I guess you could say. Obviously, we have almost every single John Jones fight, right? Tested positive. Both Daniel Cormier fights tested positive for the Alexander Gustafsson fight, forcing them to move an entire event from to a completely different state, where you have Jeff Nowitzki coming out and using some absolute garbage excuse of pulsing picograms, which is him essentially saying, well, it's okay because he only has a little bit in his system. And then in his Anthony Smith fight, they phone Anthony Smith once a day during fight week to let him know, hey, just so you know, John Jones is still testing positive. And then they went as far as to actually change the rules regarding picograms so that you can now test positive for a certain amount because they say that it gives you no competitive edge. But that's kind of bullshit because the competitive edge has already been gained through the use of steroids. As long as you are able to cycle off enough leading up to your fight, you should be fine, is essentially what they're saying. They've done all of this just for one individual, John Jones, okay? They gave Izzy a 50 clean test jacket, okay? But they had to give it to him in a women's model because, they had to compensate for his boob, okay? So they're giving Izzy props for being clean while he's got a B cup on his right tit, okay? Another one, somehow, some way, not being able to catch Kamaru Usman, despite him having extremely suspicious, circular shaped marks all over his abdomen, along with acne all over his body, along with a massive amount of muscle, along with a ton of cardio, which typically the two don't go hand in hand, okay? Allowing TJ Dillashaw to compete against Henry Cejudo and not announcing that he had in fact tested positive for EPO until after the fight had already taken place, allowing Islam allegedly to use an IV to rehydrate for his fight with Alexander Volkanovski, allowing Brock Lesnar to beat the absolute fuck out of Mark Hunt, an older Mark Hunt to boot, okay, while literally waiting until after to announce that he had tested negative. They knew that he did, they just kept it a secret because they didn't want to ruin the event, and that seems to be a theme. There's more of them, by the way. Oh, not having Israel Adesanya or Alex Pereira test during fight week, okay, which is very strange. That's probably a good time to test them. It seems like there's a theme going on that is, if we are going to catch them, it cannot be to the detriment of the event, and we will just announce it after. We'll let the UFC make their money, we'll let the fighters make their money, and then we'll suspend them after the fact, which is just defeats the whole purpose of them even being there. If you're not trying to catch guys before they enter the cage to stop the unfair advantage from happening, then what the fuck are you doing? Okay, now I want to talk about the Conor McGregor situation, as there has been a few statements made both by Conor and USADA, actually. So we're going to go over those. I'm going to read the quotes and then we will talk about that, and I'll give my take on what I think is going on. So Conor says they will announce his comeback fight on the upcoming Tough Show, and his USADA situation is handled, okay? And that the fight is expected to take place at UFC 295 at Madison Square Garden. I have a few points about that date and time, but we will talk about that in just a second. And then USADA has said, quote, we have recently been in direct contact with Conor, as he has confirmed today in the media. We expect to receive his paperwork coming out of retirement and re-entering the USADA testing pool immediately. Conor McGregor will be subject to testing for at least 6 months and prove at least 2 negative samples before being permitted to compete. Okay, so the 2-test rule, that's funny. Conor thought that he had found some kind of loophole. It's obviously goes hand in hand with the 6 months. You have to be in the pool for 6 months. You have to also pass 2 tests, okay, which makes sense, because if you could just be in the pool for 6 months and they just don't test you the whole time, that would also defeat the purpose of what their job is supposed to be. For those of you who don't know, USADA is not they are not their own third party company that is doing this completely unbiasedly, right? They are hired by the UFC. So I think that's why this theme seems to happen quite a bit, where it's, yeah, we'll catch the guy, but we'll wait till after, right? Which is bullshit, okay? John Jones has had, what, 5 fights probably where he's tested positive for steroids, and they just allowed it to happen and then dealt with it after he's already made his money, after he's already head kick KO Daniel Cormier, after he's already ground and pounded Alexander Gustafsson, after he's already illegally kneed and beat the shit out of Anthony Smith. You know what I mean? They changed the rules leading up to the Cyril Gane fight, so that is a pretty good indicator that he also had steroids in his system for that fight. And if you don't break the rules, they don't announce it, so we will never know whether or not John Jones had steroids in his system leading up to the Cyril Gane fight. But the Madison Square Garden, UFC 295, and that's from Conor. That's kind of a weird one, because he would have to get in the testing pool today, right? They typically go to Madison Square Garden either like beginning or mid, in November, right? 6 months from now is November 20th, right? So if he got in the testing pool today, handed in his paperwork, as USADA said, and immediately began his testing, he wouldn't be cleared until the end of November, right? Like November 20th. Last year they went to Madison Square Garden, I believe it was November 11th. I could be a day or two off, but it was earlier on in the month. Also, it's already been announced by the UFC now. It hasn't been made official, mind you, but that John Jones and Stipe Miocic are set to be fighting at Madison Square Garden, and I cannot imagine them. And I understand that anybody would be a co-main event to a Conor McGregor fight, but why on earth would they have one of the most prestigious titles in all of sports with another big superstar in John Jones be fighting in a co-main event to a guy who won't be fighting for the title? It seems strange to me. I just can't see them doing that. I can't see them having John Jones as a co-main event, especially considering it's for the heavyweight title of the world. Like, that's a big deal. And I don't know if this is Conor just like talking or what, but again, if they wanted to do that, he would need to be in the testing pool like now, like yesterday, depending on what day they're going there. But as of right now, if they do want him to compete at Madison Square Garden, they would have to then schedule that event for either November 21st and onward. They can't have it at the beginning. Otherwise, that 6-month time has not been reached. It's crazy to me that now all of a sudden USADA is trying to do their job and they're being extremely vocal about this whole situation, and it leaves me wondering, like, why. Brock Lesnar was pretty famous, right? John Jones is pretty famous. Israel Adesanya is pretty famous. Kamaru Usman is pretty famous. TJ Dillashaw also. None of these guys, though, are the level of a Conor McGregor, obviously, right? Even Brock Lesnar. And what I've been left thinking is I feel like a lot of the steroid stuff that goes on in the sport is mainly viewed at and mainly reviewed and spoken about by more, I guess you could say, hardcore fans. I don't like really putting those labels on or whatever, but I feel like the casual fan base doesn't really have an idea of this shit. I feel like they don't pay attention the way that some of us would. And I've noticed that, like, in my comment sections regarding some of the John Jones situations, people have said, oh, well, he only tested positive for cocaine. It's like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. He tested positive for either a steroid or a metabolite for a steroid every single fucking time they suspended him. It was never because he did cocaine. And he can talk about dick pills all the fuck he wants. If he needs gas station dick pills because he has fucked up his endocrine system so badly from doing the amount of steroids that he's done, and he happens to get fucking... come on, dude. That's such a bullshit excuse. And I don't think that they ever proved that that was the case. I think that that was just his public story that he ran with. He talked about it on Joe Rogan and all this shit. And Joe Rogan had a good question. You know, why does somebody like you need dick pills, right? And he said that it's like putting a twist at the end of your punch. It's strange, though, because, you know, if you were to look at his blood tests from the Daniel Cormier fights, you might understand why he needs dick pills, right? He's got, at some points, no fucking testosterone whatsoever. Less than a woman. I mean, this shit's shady as fuck. It's crazy to me that they're now being extremely fucking careful with how they're handling the Conor McGregor situation. And I'm wondering if it's due to the fact how many casual fans come around when Conor McGregor, like the amount of media attention that a guy like Conor McGregor gets compared to even a guy like John Jones is fucking otherworldly, right? So if they then go and have another scandal, but it has to do with Conor McGregor, I feel like that paints them in a really fucking bad light. Really bad light. And I think that everybody would be left wondering, oh, what the fuck is your job then? You know what I mean? It's just strange that they've let it happen so many times when it's going to affect the UFC. But with their biggest cash cow now, they're being extremely strict, and they're like, nope, you have to do this now. And I think it's also hilarious because these are all admissions that he has in fact been on steroids over these last couple years, I guess. And people that don't understand steroids, like I say this a lot, you should go watch More Plates, More Dates. The guy is a fucking absolute genius when it comes to this shit. Okay, he's opened up TRT clinics and all that. Like, the guy knows what he's talking about. You don't necessarily need a piece of paper saying you graduated from this university to know what you're talking about. But he goes over a lot of this stuff. And it's just fucking crazy to me, man. Like, Jeff Nowitzki is not good at his job. He's known for catching, fuck me, dude. He's known for catching Lance Armstrong, right? After he had won a ton of medals. And not just that, you would have to go, I think it was all the way to like 19th place in that race, the Tour de France or whatever the fuck it is, to find somebody who was not on shit, right? They were all on shit. It was just because he was the most high profile guy, which leaves me wondering, why is he not, like, I'm wondering if Conor McGregor is if he's attempting to make Conor McGregor his sacrificial lamb. And if that would happen, would the UFC keep them around? I mean, it wouldn't happen until after the fight, again, as we know. But it's just, there's a lot of questions, or at least I have a lot of questions, because we've seen them be shady in so many other situations. We've seen them allow Brock Lesnar to not be in the testing pool for 6 months and still fight Mark Hunt. And it's crazy to me that they're doing this with the guy who sells well over 1 million pay-per-views every fucking time out, regardless of who he's fighting. I'm just, it leaves you wondering a little bit. Or it could be smoke and mirrors. Maybe they're going to say, oh, well, it's fucking weird, man. It's weird. Usually they're so nonchalant about this shit. And they're never this vocal when it comes to athletes that have been involved in these scandals. Like, they've never came out with statements like this against John Jones, like, oh, he's gonna have to do this, this, and this. He's not competing until this. Like, they've never done this before. It's weird to me, man. But they're all but admitting he's been on steroids. Okay, well, I lost my point. Now I remembered it. You don't just get the advantage, like, while you're doing steroids. If you are doing steroids to train, and this is what I was saying, go check out Derek for More Plates, More Dates. The guy breaks all this shit down very comprehensively. You gain an advantage regardless. Like, if you're on a cycle while you're doing training, that advantage is going to carry over. You don't just lose it when you cycle off. Like, that's not how that fucking works, dude. It's fucking crazy, man. I'm wondering, like, could this just be them pretending to be extremely strict regarding their rules so that that it appears to be fair? But in reality, they are going to let him get away with a lot of shit. Because first of all, 2 tests in 6 months, that's fucking shady just as is. It's better than just being in the pool for 6 months. But if you get tested once every 3 months, I mean, fucking what, dude? You could be on shit 2 months out of the 3 and then another 2 months out of the next 3. It's just, I find it so, I'm so curious as to what they're thinking. And what Conor McGregor's been on. And what kind of advantage he's going to have going forward. And I'm also wondering how fucking frustrated he is with these people, considering he is the most famous person in the UFC. He is their biggest cash cow. He is very used to having everybody kind of work around him. And then he's got this fucking bald-headed fucking Jeff Nowitzki telling him, nah, you ain't coming back. I don't think the Madison Square Garden date is realistic. And I've also seen some people online saying to just fucking let them fight because both of them are on steroids. I don't think Michael Chandler's on steroids, man. You look at a guy like Kamaru Usman, who's got a ton of muscle mass with a ton of fucking cardio, and then you look at a guy like Michael Chandler, and he is like this stereotypical muscled up dude. The guy will gas. The guy gets tired. You know what I mean? He's not. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy to be on steroids. I think he just has good genetics. I think he's a short, stocky guy who has good muscle inserts, and so he looks fucking shredded. And then I've seen guys like Jesse on Fire saying that they just need to give Conor an exemption, which is fucking bullshit, dude. Why are you letting guys, just because they're famous and make the UFC a bunch of money, get use exemptions for shit like this, when the whole point is to make it a fair sport, or at the very least appear to be a fair sport? I just think that if this turned into a scandal, it would be way too publicized for USADA to fucking survive. I think that if they allowed Conor McGregor to go in that cage and then they released after the fact he had tested positive for fucking A, B, and C, I think that that would probably be like the end of USADA. People would be, well, what the fuck is the point of you guys anyways then? And I also feel like a lot of these fighters, I don't know that it's USADA, like, I don't know if it's malice or intent, like they're intentionally not trying to catch people, or if it's that these fighters have guys who are more sophisticated than the tests and they are able to work themselves around it. Like, I think that is the case. Derek from More Plates, More Dates, again, has gone over how, if he was the head of USADA, how he would be trying to catch these guys. He says that the tests that they do are not nearly enough, and you wouldn't expect to catch anybody that knows what the fuck they're doing on these things. So, I want to know what you guys think, though. What do you guys think Conor's doing? What do you think USADA's doing? Why do you think they're doing it? I want to know if you think that they will make Conor McGregor fight on Madison Square Garden, despite it being less than 6 months away, and if they will have John Jones co-main event. That would be fucking wild to me, dude. I thought as soon as the Francis Ngannou news broke, I thought that they were going to save Conor McGregor for Francis Ngannou's first fight and just have Conor, be there to kind of take away from his whatever, his fucking event that he's doing. I don't think they need to do that. They could potentially have any decent pay-per-view on, and it would take away from it. But I thought that they were just gonna try and really fucking bury him, dude, with Conor McGregor. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this shit, because it's crazy to me, again, that there's been so many scandals with guys that are high profile, but not as high profile. Guys that bring in a ton of revenue, but not as much revenue. And now when it comes to the literal, like, cash cow, the most famous UFC fighter on the planet, the most famous fucking fighter on the planet, maybe. And now they're being extra, extra strict. So I'm wondering if it's just a facade or if they don't want that smoke because they know how fucking bad it would look if they let him fight with testing positive. And, potentially, if he were to knock out Michael Chandler, which I think is the most likely outcome, that would look bad, right? Because typically when Conor McGregor finishes somebody, it's pretty fucking violent. You know what I mean? And then you'll find out after the fact, oh, well, he was on steroids. It's not a good look. And, yeah. So let me know what you guys think. Anyways, dude, that's the end of this video. Like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.